Hello guys. Okay, before I'm gonna go through the settings in the graphics menu, I'm gonna talk a little bit about why it's actually important to have the right graphics settings. What you want to do is look at your monitor and find out what's the maximum refresh rate of your monitor. Most likely you're going to have a 60 Hertz monitor, so 60 pictures or frames per second. But maybe you're gonna have a 120 Hertz monitor like I do. So find out what refresh rate your monitor has before you do any of the settings. Now, in general in this game, you want as high of a frame rate as possible, because most engagements are in the 3 to 0 meters distance, and aliens gonna jump around you really quickly, and accordingly you have to do really quick turns while shooting at them, and having more frames per second gonna give you more pictures while doing a turn. And if you're only playing at 30 FPS, you're gonna have a really hard time aiming in those close quarter engagements. And it's really, since I switched to my 120 Hz monitor from 60 Hz, the game is so much more fun to play. Getting high performance, high frame rate is really important in this game. Now, that being said, so main priority, get the maximum refresh rate of your monitor all the time. Now, to see your frame rate, you can open the console by pressing the button below Escape and type in FPS. And then it's gonna show your current frame rate in the top left corner. Now, this should always be the maximum refresh rate of your monitor. And also what you want to do, you want to set it the maximum FPS by just typing max FPS to 1 frame above your maximum refresh rate of your monitor. So if you have a 60 Hz monitor, type in max FPS 61. Now you see the frame rate went down to 61. And it should always stay at that. It should never dip below to like 40 or 50 or even 30. That's really bad. So try to have that always kept at that frame rate. Now the advantages of having your maximum frame rate capped at 1 frame per second above your maximum refresh rate is, let's say you were running a 6 Hz monitor and your frame rate would fluctuate between 70 and let's say 130 frames per second. You would have, depending where you are in the map and how much is going on, the frame rate would fluctuate a lot, and frame rate fluctuation is not good. It can cause a little bit of stuttering, and it's not going to be as smooth. And the second advantage, your graphics card doesn't have to work as hard. Hence, it's going to run cooler, draw less power, and be quieter, which are all really good things. Now obviously the console command with the max FPS is going to go away once you restarted the game. So to set it permanently, you can go to Steam, to your game, right click Properties, and then set launch options, and just in quotation marks type in max FPS and the FPS you want. So if you have 6 Hz monitor, 61, if like me, 121 Hz monitor, 121. Simple as that. Click OK and launch a game, and you're done. Okay, now let's finally go through the graphics settings. Just keep in mind that you want to hit the maximum refresh rate of your monitor all the time. Just dial in some settings and look in the game whether you get your maximum refresh rate all the time. And then you should be fine. Okay. First, device. I would recommend playing on DirectX 9 since DirectX 11 is in beta and could cause some problems. Resolution. Really important, run the native resolution of your monitor. So if you have a 1080p monitor, run it at 1080p. If you run at a different resolution, your monitor has to up or downscale the image, and that takes time, hence increasing the input lag. Really bad. So always run at the native resolution of your monitor. Window mode, just full screen. Vertical synchronization, really important, disable that. Enabling it will increase the input lag by a lot because it renders frames in advance and basically holds them hostage and shows them to you later. It can smooth the game a little bit, but increases the input like by a lot, and it also induces stutter into the game, so leave that off. Texture quality, just it's gonna look better, but your frame rate may go down a little bit. If you can run it, then just leave it on high. Texture handling, just put it at the amount your video card has memory. So if you have a 2 GB or 3 GB card, put it on 2 GB plus like I have. Or if you have a lower card, just set it accordingly. Particle quality, the same. It reduces the frame rate a little bit, but not much. So if you can run it, just leave it on high. Now shadows, that of course it's just gonna put shadows into the game. This will decrease your frame rate by quite a bit. So if you cannot get consistent frame rate of the maximum refresh rate of your monitor, consider turning shadows off. Because I have a 120 Hz monitor, I have shadows off, because with shadows on, sometimes the frame rate dipped below this frame rate, 121, and that's why I keep it off. But if you're only running a 60 Hz monitor and you have a strong graphics card, you can leave it on. Light quality, I just keep on high. It won't be a hard hit. No anti-aliasing, that's going to smooth the edges and reduce jaggies, but it's also going to decrease your FPS by quite a bit. So the same thing, if you like the look, you can keep it on, but if you cannot get the consistent frame rate, then turn it off. And personally, it just blurs the image a little bit, and yeah, I prefer having it off. Now bloom puts a little bit of glow around edges and stuff, also decreases your frame rate. It just, yeah, for me it doesn't make the game look better and decrease the frame rate, so I just leave it off. Atmospheric's gonna put in fog and some lighting effects. I really don't like the look of it, but yeah, it might decrease the frame rate a little bit. That's a preference, just do it accordingly. Anisotropic filtering, that's gonna make textures look a lot better, especially if you're looking at them at a steep angle. So really leave that on, because it's not going to decrease the frame rate a lot. It's not really demanding, so I would recommend leaving that on. Now to ambient occlusion. This one is really demanding on the game, and what it does, it basically improves the lighting quality. So it calculates objects in the game and how they scatter light and how they would affect the lighting of different objects. It makes the game look a little bit nicer, but to be honest, you don't really need it. And it's really demanding. So if you cannot get the constant frame rate, this is the first setting I would turn off, because it's really demanding and it doesn't really improve the game quality that much. Reflections, just like it says, it's reflections. I like to keep it on because it just looks nice. If you cannot get the consistent frame rate, also might be a setting you could turn off. The decal lifetime you can just leave at standard. And infestation, I like to keep it on rich, because that's one setting that really makes the game pop and make the infestation look a lot better. And it's not that super demanding, so I would recommend leaving that on. Yes, that's the graphic settings. In general settings, on the very bottom, physics multithreading, that's a new feature. I would recommend turning it on. I haven't encountered any problems with it, except for if you're a Linux user, you should leave that off, otherwise it can cause crashes. But basically, especially if you have a weaker CPU, it can really improve especially late game quality if there's a lot of entities in the game. And yes, those are the settings. Now onto the mouse side of things. I'm using my mouse with 2400 dpi, so if you have a higher or lower sensitivity, just keep that in mind and change it accordingly. And all those values I'm talking about are probably a good starting point and what I prefer, but it's different for everybody else. But go into your mouse options and under pointer options, make sure this checkbox is disabled. Otherwise you're gonna have acceleration on, and that's really bad. That's not good for gaming. And I like to keep the speed dial 1 to the right of the middle, so a little bit faster. That gives you a pretty good value for raw input into games. Now, into game options, for the mouse settings, really important, leave mouse acceleration off. Because if you have it on, basically the distance you have to move your mouse to do, for example, a 360 degree turn is different depending on how fast you move your mouse. And that's just really bad, because your muscle memory for doing a 360 turn or 180 degree turn, yeah, it's gonna be different, and that's really bad. Yes, so keep that off. Also, put on raw input. And if you did the settings like I showed you in the desktop or in the Windows, this should help improve your mouse aim as well. And for the mouse sensitivity, with my 2400 dpi, I like to have the settings of 3.5. What you can do, you can put a ruler on your mouse pad, and in-game look how many centimeters it takes to do a 360 degree turn. And for me, that's 5.5 centimeters. And I found that to be, for me, the best settings. It's probably a really good starting point. Just dial something like that in, play a little bit, see whether it's too slow or too fast for you, and then just adjust it accordingly. And also try to use that in different games. So if you're playing a different shooter, try to have the same distance for a 360 degree turn. So if I were to play another different game, I would also set the 360 degree turn distance to 5.5 centimeters. And quickly to the sound settings, I would really recommend playing with headphones or a headset, because the positional audio is so important in this game. You can pinpoint where aliens or marines are running just by listening, and this is really important. So if you have speakers, consider getting a headset. And if you don't have a microphone, get a microphone. This game is about communication and team play. So get a microphone, get headphones. It's gonna make you a better player, a better team player. You can hear where aliens or marines are coming from. And yeah, that's a big plus. And talking in game and communicating is the most important thing ever. I prefer a rookie who communicates far over a player who just doesn't listen at all, but is better at killing. So just keep that in mind. Okay guys, now to the NVIDIA control panel settings. So if you have an NVIDIA card, you can just right click on the desktop and go to the NVIDIA control panel. And in here you can go to the 3D settings, manage 3D settings, go to global settings, and yes. And in here there's a few settings. What's pretty important, the maximum pre-rendered frames set it to 1. It's like with the vertical synchronization, you want it to be low, otherwise it's gonna increase the input lag, because basically it renders frames before it's gonna be displayed, so you get the frames later than you should be. It can make the game look smoother, but it's like you get them with a delay, the frames, and that's not good, especially not in multiplayer fast-paced games. Yes. And triple buffering you should disable as well. Vertical synchronization you can disable in general. I myself, I have two screens, one really big one that's not good for fast gaming, but I like to play like Civilization 5 and stuff like that on there, where I have vertical synchronization enabled. So I use the 3D application settings, but if you only have one monitor and only play fast-paced games, you can disable that. Okay. And also ambient occlusion, I have that off. I don't like the setting. So, but the more important part, what many people don't know about, if you go to the resolution settings, and for example, this is my big monitor, you can select your monitor, go to customize, and you can create a custom resolution. Usually, just leave the maximum pixels, the resolution in here. So my big monitor is 3440 times 1440 pixels, but the refresh rate you can change. Usually it's 60, but with most monitors you increase it. You can overclock the monitor with a graphics card. So what you can do, you can go one frame at a time, just increase the refresh rate by 1, click on test. Okay, this one already exists. And then just go up one frame at a time and test it. And you're gonna reach a point where the display is gonna be all fucked up. Then just press escape and go back to the last good setting. And if you tested it successfully, you're gonna have the new custom resolution with the new frame rate in here, and you'll be able to select that one, the 61 Hz for that monitor. This monitor doesn't go above 61 Hz. It's a super nice gaming monitor, and not gaming, a photography monitor. But with my old TN panel monitor, I went from 60 to 60 Hz, 66 Hz, for example. So a 10% improvement, which is nice. And then you can set in the game, for example, let's say you go from 60 to 66, then you can set the max FPS in game to 67, for example. Just like I told you before. But that's a nice and for free way to increase the refresh rate of your monitor. And yeah, with all those things combined, you should be able to get a much better gaming experience and to kill more stuff. Okay, then I hope this tutorial helped you and enjoy playing NS2 and stay positive. Bye guys. That wraps up my tutorial. I hope you find it useful. If you have any questions or suggestions perhaps, or even tips for myself if I've overlooked anything, please feel free to leave me a comment. And just stay positive, have fun playing the game, and take care. Bye bye.